One can say the turning point in the life of a human being is when one can differentiate between using the mind or being used by the mind. In the normal way of going about life, we are so much identified with the mind and its conditionings that one can, with a careful observation, say that one is like a slave of the mind. Whatever thoughts come, whatever feelings are arising, whatever impressions are coming, they all pull and drag one into this or that. So it is a kind of driftwood process. Whereas to understand the nature of the mind itself and look what is really our need. Who are we? And through this careful consideration and insight, to bring about steps in life that one is not just repeating the past and the conditionings in it blindly further, but being open to understand life, understand yourself, understand what life really is. And through that, be able to recognize the whole beauty, the whole wonder, the whole blessedness with which we are able to be here. The whole care, the whole intelligence, the whole playfulness, the whole sensibility which is behind all this manifestation of life, which is making it possible for us to be here in this body, on this planet. When it becomes conscious to us, and you see that nothing is to be taken for granted, everything is fragile. Everything can change any moment. And it is only due to some deep care and intelligence that we are able to be with all these challenges, with all these dangers, moving forward, being able to come in terms with it. And flow with life. When we understand what it means to flow with life and not blindly push through some conditioned way of going about life, then it's already a very big difference. Otherwise, just following the past blindly, sooner or later we become like a canceric cell. Without recognizing our interconnectedness, without recognizing that we are part of a greater reality, if we are just only pushing through some concept, some conditioning, some fixation, which has not been taken by you consciously, which is maybe connected with some hurt, with some pain, with some negative impressions of the past. And carrying on on that basis without questioning, what am I doing? What are the priorities which I have in my life? Is it really valuable for me? Is it really going to fulfill me? Is it really going to bring me that what deep within I am seeking? What are you seeking? Become conscious of it through your questioning. Only then you come to realize what way to realize that what you are seeking, what way to really be fulfilled and not just be pushed and pulled and play the victim and go on blaming and sooner or later resignate or get into some kind of escape routes like alcohol or drugs. You have to be ruthlessly plain with yourself when you want to get clear. And in the beginning it is not at all easy, because often we are carrying things which we have been wanting not to look at. It is painful, you feel ashamed about it, or you feel so burdened by it and you don't want to have anything to do with it. But what you need to realize is you are carrying it and your energy is blocked through that. And that what you see, what you decide, the way you react, it is all influenced by this what you carry within you. So if you don't confront and clear what you carry within, and inwardly become distant, inwardly become free, inwardly become capable to connect wakefully and directly to life. Without that, in so many ways, you are just continuing to be a slave of your past, whether you want it or not, whether you are able to admit it or not. It may sound a little bit uncomfortable when something like that is touched, because who wants to be called a slave? Everybody wants to believe that they know what they want, they are clear, and want to go on giving to the outside an impression of being completely in control of oneself and powerful and strong. Okay, you may have to play that role in certain situations, but when you get trapped in it, and when you are going on in this kind of attitude without admitting to yourself that you need to look, you need to understand, you need to awaken. Without that, to put it plainly, one is fooling oneself. In the end, nobody else is really affected as much as you are affected. That is why the earlier you recognize the need to question yourself, the need to confront yourself in a careful and wakeful way, to confront oneself in the right way, because it's not just to try to find something to criticize and to categorize in some kind of right and wrong, good and bad labels, but it is simply learning to look, learning to see what is the way it is manifesting in you. What are the undercurrent factors which are at work and how they are all interwoven in your life? And what way you can free the energy which is trapped in all these things, which is otherwise dragging you down. You may be wanting to open your wings and fly and be free, but there are things of your past which you have not confronted and cleared, which is pulling you down like very heavy stones. And then you are wondering why things are not working, as if somebody is against you. And you would like to change the outside. You would like to blame the system, you would like to blame the others. And we are used to that kind of a way of going about life, where we only focus on the outside. That's part of this conditioning. So unless you turn the attention inward and courageously, honestly, persistently, with an inner determination, be oriented to seeing all what is taking place within you. Without that, the automatism drags you again and again into the old structures, into the old circles. That's why I say, when you are not deliberately orienting towards light, when you are not deliberately orienting to stay present, you are again drifting away into all kind of things, pushed and pulled by all kind of uncleared things, or all kind of impressions, all kind of factors which are taking place around, and you find yourself somehow here and there, and it's not fulfilling. It's not what you may be really wanting. But you have to, first of all, become aware what way you are going about the life, and in what way it is necessary to claim yourself, to reclaim yourself. And see that you don't need to play the victim. You don't need to go on fighting with everybody and trying to change the others. That will not help you. If it would help you, I would say, okay, go ahead. No, it won't. If you are carefully and courageously looking, you will see that that is all getting trapped in an area, in a dimension where there is, in a deeper sense, no winning and losing. In the apparent level, it looks like somebody is a winner and somebody is a loser. But consider it carefully. The so-called loser is waiting to hit back. And the so-called winner is afraid of losing what they have. There's always an undercurrent tension in both, in the so-called winner and the so-called loser. So it is not really a winning and losing in a deeper sense. It is a kind of game in the mind level. It's an intoxication. So you have to be deepening your vision, penetrating more into considering, into looking what is all taking place. And see the difference between thinking about all this and engaging yourself on a logical, rational level, or observing this whole thought process, reflecting everything without identifying with it. When you are not very carefully and deliberately moving to this reflective quality of being with the reality, you are pulled into the identification. The other day I was again mentioning this statement from the Old Testament, which in the first look sounds like what kind of a God is it? Because it is said in the Old Testament that when God says that if you are not for me, you are against me. Looks a little macho-like. A God who is saying either you are for me or you are against me. It looks like this usual power game. But it is not to be taken so literally. These are all poetical indications trying to make something very deep visible. And that is exactly what it is trying to convey. If you are not seeking the light, if you are not seeking clarity, if you are not deliberately, consciously being after a wakeful way of being with the moment, the automatism drags you into all kind of thoughts, all kind of reactions, all kind of feelings, and you go into some cloud, you go into some train of thought, and you are drifted away. So if you are not deliberately for light, for wakefulness, you are going against yourself. You are going against your intelligence, against your deeper longing. So God is not somewhere just outside. God is an indication of that what you essentially am. That is why when you are deeply relaxed and silent and at home, at ease with yourself, for no reason there is joy. There's no reason there is such a feeling of well-beingness. Because you are one. You are not inwardly caught in the duality of the game. And the one behind everyone, that is what you need to experientially understand. Just putting words like God or soul or true self, it's all indicative, but that is not enough. They are all just words. So recognize the need and the urgency to bring the attention and bring these steps consequently in your life. And nobody else can do it for you. If you don't determine, if you don't see the urgency, and if you don't go for this direction deliberately from your side, the opportunities can again drift away. You may get caught in this or that. You may be so entangled in something or the other that all the other kind of things cloud you and other priorities seems to be more important. And then again, you find it far away to connect to yourself, more difficult just to come home to yourself. That is why I'm reminding that when you are able to understand, when you have the capacity to see it, don't miss it, because it's very easily possible to be overseen. It's very easily possible that something else comes and you get pulled into that and forget it. That's why I say it is, especially in the first phase for the period, it is like bringing up a small seed into a plant. In the beginning, you need to take care of it. You need to give the right warmth, and you need to protect it from all kind of things which can stamp on it or destroy it, or when it becomes a small plant, the animals can eat it away. Too much rain or strong wind, all can disturb. So you have to be very careful. And by, when it grows up, when it becomes a tree, it starts bearing fruits, then you don't need all these efforts. Then it can protect you, it can give you the fruits, it can give you the shade, it can give you the protection. That is why the so-called inner work is, when rightly understood, an orientation to be with the consciousness in a wholehearted way. You have to be ready to stand for it. Without getting heavy, without getting into a fighting approach, without getting fanatic in a narrow level. Recognize the need, recognize the urgency. Gently but steadily orient to it. And then you will understand that it's coming closer to yourself. It is being yourself in a true sense. It's being authentic. And it is not against anybody. On the contrary, when you are being honest to yourself, you are in touch with yourself, you understand what your true needs are, then you are also able to understand and respect others and their needs in a graceful way. It is not an ongoing competition where everybody is just looking, oh, I want this, where's my thing? It's a very childish state. It's an immature state where one is only always thinking about the narrow idea of oneself and its program and struggling blindly. We become mature, we become truly human and move in the direction which can fulfill us and make us really free and enable us to recognize the blessedness of this life. Only when we take this deep responsibility for ourselves. From outside, you can be reminded. You can find the inspiration. And the more you are ready, you can be questioned, you can be supported in a direct way, but yet the steps are within. You have to see what is working in you. And nobody else needs to give you anything because it is already the case. It's already there. What you are seeking is deep within there. You don't need to run for it somewhere, but you need to make yourself available so that what is there can become conscious to you. Otherwise, we are very easily outward oriented, just caught in the thought and not watching the thought. Recognize this difference. You can identify it with the thought process and go on judging and go on in this kind of usual role, or you can take one step inside and observe this all. Then you are not just identified with the thinking, you are observing the process of thinking. And that is what gives you the freedom. Otherwise you are constantly in friction with the so-called other, suspicious, fearful, calculative, checking out, where do I gain, where do I lose? Is it a friend or an enemy? And this is this animal level of survival program which we just repeat, which for a human being is a tragedy. Because a human being is not only having the animal background but having a divine future. And unless you seek, unless you deliberately are questioning and confronting and mirroring what is, you don't come to it, because automatically we close ourselves up. We react in particular ways without looking at the wholeness of the situation. So we go on repeating ourselves, limiting ourselves. That is why in the East there is understanding for it that you need to be on the path. On the path means deliberately inquiring, deliberately being attentive to all what is taking place within you. This is called sadhana in Sanskrit, that you remember to be a seeker of the truth. You remember to be a seeker of what really is. You remember to be a seeker of that what can liberate you. Otherwise, we may imagine that we are free, but we are not free. We are simply following certain conditionings. It is like a robot imagining that I am free. You can make a robot believe all kinds of things and speak all kinds of things in its program. But still, it is a limited mechanism. When we are identified with the mind unconsciously and repeating our past, we are not so much different. But what we as human beings carry in us is a potential to see it, to confront it, to go beyond it. And through that, bring the hidden treasures of our life, the potential of love, the potential of peace, the potential of joy, the potential of true freedom into flowering. Which also means that we come to recognize the whole magnificence of this existence, the wonder which is there in every detail of this existence. Look at any single aspect of this life carefully, then you see that it is part of a mystery. There is so much intelligence, playfulness, creativity, aesthetic behind it. Even the so-called worst things, what we normally categorize as bad and horrible, seen without prejudice, seen without preoccupation, you will see it differently, because then you see life has an ongoing balancing process. Nature is going on balancing. We may not see it as relevant, but nature has a function. Nature has its intelligence. When we also become consciously available, we are also attuning to this balancing process of nature. That is the beauty of our life. That is where we start experiencing ourselves in a different dimension, where we see we have the body, we have the personality, but our home is somewhere deeper. Body and the personality is part of a passing show. One day it is born and one day it is going to die. You cannot hold to it. You cannot settle with it, howsoever much you may want. It can be bringing so many excitements, so many fascinating experiences, but the moment we want to settle with it, we are preparing the ground for suffering. Because in the very nature of the dualistic reality, it can be existing only together with this polarity. So you have to let it become transparent to yourself through your own deeper confrontation with that what is, and come in terms with it all. That is the challenge, that is the task, that is the adventure, that is the invitation to discover yourself, to be yourself, and awaken to your divinity, and be a blessing to yourself and indirectly to all. In the Sufi tradition there is a saying, the true well-being of one is the true well-being of all. Because if you are really looking what is good, what is your true need, what you are, and are orienting to be good in that sense, you will be spontaneously, naturally also benefiting everyone else, because you see that it is an interconnected reality. And when it comes not because of some moralistic teachings, not because somebody is threatening you that when you don't do this kind of things you go to hell, and when you are only doing this kind of things you will get a corner in the heaven, then of course it is being trapped in the animal level. You are following only the fear and greed blindly. When you can watch this process of fear and greed working in you, that you are able to observe it, then you cannot be manipulated. Then you can see that that is not what you need to blindly follow. Till we see this unconscious entanglement in the fear and greed process, which is connected with the identification, we are manipulable and we are manipulating others too, because it's a certain state of interacting, a certain state of entanglement from which one is reacting to all what is taking place. That is why when you become a blessing to yourself, you become a blessing to the world. Then whatever you do or don't do, you are contributing. Of course, you will also open up to manifest in all kind of way in which life shows you. But it will be out of your abundance, out of your joy, out of your compassion. So, recognizing the differentiation between using the mind or being used by the mind is a very basic turning point. Become alert about this possibility and also recognize the urgency to stay with it. and also the danger how one can forget it, one can get drifted away. Not out of this fear and calculation, but simply seeing how the nature of the reality is. Not because somebody is now saying something that you have to be afraid of something. No, it is not frightening you for making or managing something. It is simply becoming alert about the nature of the reality and thereby seeing how delicate everything is, how vulnerable we are, and at the same time in what way life has given us this capability to inquire, to understand, to awaken, and to be celebrating this life, celebrating the blessedness of being here, of being in this body, being in this world, in the right way, with the right basis. When we sit now, remember that this is a time you are taking to consciously and deliberately disentangle yourself from the automatism and be a non-interfering observer of all what is. Taking time like this is what will also make it easier for you during the day-to-day life process not to get lost in this automatism. And when you are in this way in touch with yourself and not be identified and caught in the automatism, you will experience life as something so beautiful, something so playful, and you will be spontaneously feeling a gratitude for all this what life is. When we sit now, remember this orientation of non-interfering presence, and with such an orientation we sit the next hour with closed eyes.